I spent 4 years working 60-hour weeks, sacrificing my weekends, my relationships, and my mental health, all for a promotion that was officially mine. Until my boss walked into my office, looked me dead in the eyes, and told she was giving my position to her 23-year-old niece, who had been with the company for exactly 6 weeks. What happened next exposed a web of corruption that went all the way to the top. Before I tell you this absolutely unhinged story, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to this channel for more workplace drama. And drop a comment below telling me, have you ever had a promotion stolen from you? I want to hear your stories. Now, let me tell you everything. My name is Rebecca, and 4 years ago, I started working at Meridian Financial Solutions as a junior account coordinator. It was an entry-level position, sure, but I saw potential in this company. The office was located in a sleek high-rise downtown, all glass windows and modern furniture, the kind of place that made you feel like you were going somewhere in life. From day one, I threw myself into the work. I'm talking arriving at 7 in the morning, staying until 8 or 9 at night. I learned every system, memorized every client's preferences, and volunteered for projects that nobody else wanted to touch. My supervisor at the time, a kind older gentleman named Gerald, noticed my dedication. He pulled me aside one afternoon, coffee cup in hand, and said, "Rebecca, you've got something special. Don't let anyone dim that light." Those words meant everything to me. I came from nothing, you understand. My parents worked factory jobs their whole lives. I was the first person in my family to graduate college, and I did it while working 2 part-time jobs and surviving on ramen noodles and sheer determination. This career wasn't just a job to me. It was proof that all those sacrifices meant something. After 2 years, Gerald retired, and that's when everything changed. Our new department director was a woman named Victoria Ashworth. She was 45, always dressed in designer suits, and had this way of looking at people like she was calculating their worth down to the decimal point. Victoria was the kind of boss who smiled at you while sharpening a knife behind her back. In meetings, she'd praise my work publicly, calling me her rising star and her secret weapon. But behind closed doors, she took credit for every single one of my ideas. Every single one. I remember this one time I had spent 3 weeks developing a new client retention strategy. I'm talking spreadsheets, presentations, market research, the whole package. I presented it to Victoria in her corner office, and she nodded along, taking notes. "This is excellent work, Rebecca," she said, her manicured nails tapping against her desk. "Let me review it and we'll discuss next steps." Next steps. The following week, I sat in the conference room and watched Victoria present my strategy to the executive team, word for word, as her own creation. She didn't even change the font on the slides. When the executives applauded her innovation, she just smiled and said, "Thank you, I've been working on this concept for months." I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and expose her right there. But I didn't. I sat there, hands clenched under the table, telling myself that my time would come, that if I just kept my head down and worked hard, eventually I would get what I deserved. For 2 more years, I played the game. I trained 3 new hires who all got promoted before me. I covered for colleagues who called in sick during crucial deadlines. I even came into the office the day after my grandmother's funeral because Victoria said we had a critical client situation that only I could handle. The critical situation? She needed someone to organize her filing cabinet. But then finally, my moment arrived. The senior account manager position opened up. This was it. The role I had been working toward for 4 years. Better salary, my own team, actual recognition for my contributions. I was elated. That night, I went home to my tiny apartment and actually allowed myself to celebrate. I ordered takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant, poured myself a glass of wine, and called my mom. When I told her the news, she started crying. "My baby girl," she kept saying. "My baby girl is going to be a manager." I fell asleep that night feeling like everything was finally falling into place. The interviews went perfectly. I answered every question with confidence, provided concrete examples of my achievements, and even received compliments from the HR director. "Very impressive, Rebecca," she said, shaking her hand. "You clearly know this department inside and out." A week passed. Then 2. I started getting nervous. Victoria kept avoiding eye contact with me in meetings. When I asked about the decision timeline, she'd wave her hand dismissively and say, "These things take time, Rebecca. Be patient." Then came the Monday that changed everything. I remember it was raining outside, one of those gray, depressing days where the sky looks like dirty dishwater. Victoria's assistant, a nervous young man named Timothy, appeared at my cubicle. "Victoria wants to see you in her office," he said, not meeting my eyes. Now, as I walked down the hallway, I noticed something strange. People were looking at me differently, some with pity. Others quickly looked away when I caught their gaze. My stomach started churning. Victoria was sitting behind her massive mahogany desk when I entered, but she wasn't alone. Sitting in one of the leather chairs across from her was a young woman I vaguely recognized. Blonde hair, designer clothes that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and this smug little smile that immediately set my teeth on edge. "Victoria, please sit down," she said, gesturing to the empty chair. Her voice was overly sweet, the way it always got when she was about to deliver bad news. "I wanted to introduce you to someone. This is my niece, Brittany. She's going to be our new senior account manager." I blinked. Once, twice. "I'm sorry," I said slowly. "I think I misheard you." Victoria's smile didn't waver. "Brittany graduated from college last year and has been doing some freelance consulting work. She joined our team 6 weeks ago as a temporary assistant, but she's shown remarkable potential. The executive team agreed that she's the perfect fit for this role." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. 6 weeks. 6 weeks. This girl had been with the company for 6 weeks, and she was getting the position I had spent 4 years earning? "Victoria," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady, "I was told I was the front runner for this position. I have 4 years of experience, documented achievements, client relationships that I built from the ground up. How is this possible?" Brittany actually had the audacity to speak up. "I mean, experience is great and all, but sometimes companies need fresh perspectives, you know?" She twirled a strand of hair around her finger. "I have a lot of innovative ideas about how to modernize things around here." Innovative ideas. This girl, who just last week I had seen asking someone how to use the copy machine, had innovative ideas about running a department she knew nothing about? I turned back to Victoria. "I need to speak with HR about this. There was a formal interview process. There are protocols." Victoria's expression hardened. "The decision has been made, Rebecca. I suggest you accept it gracefully. Brittany will need your help transitioning into the role, and I expect you to provide full support." She stood up, signaling that the conversation was over. That will be all. I walked out of that office in a daze. My hands were shaking. My vision was blurry with unshed tears. Deep breath. When I got back to my desk, I just sat there, staring at my computer screen without seeing anything. But here's the thing about me. I don't give up easily. That afternoon, I went straight to HR. I sat down with the director, a woman named Patricia, and laid out my case calmly and professionally. I showed her my performance reviews, my documented achievements, the client testimonials. I explained how Victoria had told me the position was essentially mine. Patricia listened, nodding sympathetically. But when I finished, she sighed heavily. "Rebecca, I understand your frustration, I really do. But the final decision on hires and promotions rests with the department director. There's nothing HR can do to override Victoria's choice." "Even when it's blatant nepotism?" I asked. "Even when she hired her own niece who has 0 qualifications?" Patricia shifted in her seat. "I can't speak to the specifics of the decision-making process. What I can tell you is that legally, unless there's documented discrimination based on a protected class, the company has the right to promote whoever they choose." I left HR feeling more hopeless than before. That night, I went home and cried for 3 hours straight. I called in sick the next day because I couldn't face going back there. But something shifted in me during those dark hours. I realized that if I stayed at Meridian, I would always be trapped under Victoria's thumb. She would never let me advance. She would keep using me, taking credit for my work, and passing me off for people who didn't deserve it. So I made a decision. I started job hunting secretly. I updated my resume, reached out to old contacts, and began interviewing during my lunch breaks. 3 weeks later, I had an offer from a competitor, a smaller firm called Whitmore Associates. Better title, better salary, and a leadership team that actually seemed to value their employees. I accepted the offer on a Friday. The following Monday, I walked into Victoria's office with my resignation letter. The look on her face was priceless. For once, she was completely caught off guard. "You can't leave," she sputtered. "You have projects, clients who depend on you." "I'm giving 2 weeks' notice as required," I said calmly. "I'm sure Brittany can handle my responsibilities. After all, she has all those innovative ideas." Here's where it gets really good. During my final 2 weeks, I documented everything. Every email where Victoria took credit for my work, every project I had actually developed, every client I had personally brought in or retained. I saved copies to my personal drive. Legally, of course, nothing confidential, just my own work product and communications. On my last day, 3 of my biggest clients who I had personally cultivated relationships with for 4 years, called Victoria to inform her they were taking their business elsewhere. They were following me to Whitmore Associates. Victoria was furious. She actually came to my cubicle while I was packing up my things, her face red, her voice barely controlled. "You stole my clients," she hissed. "This is illegal. I'll sue you for breach of contract." "Actually, Victoria, I reviewed my employment agreement with a lawyer. There's no non-compete clause and no non-solicitation agreement. Those clients chose to leave on their own." I picked up my box of belongings. They told me they were tired of dealing with someone who couldn't actually answer their questions. Apparently, they'd figured out who was really doing the work all along. The aftermath was spectacular. Without me and without those wager clients, Victoria's department started struggling immediately. Brittany, as it turned out, was completely incompetent. She couldn't manage deadlines, alienated the remaining clients with her attitude, and made multiple costly errors on accounts. 6 months later, I got a LinkedIn message from Timothy, Victoria's former assistant. Brittany had been quietly let go after a client threatened to sue over a major mistake she made. Victoria was put on a performance improvement plan by the executives, and the company had lost 3 more major accounts since my departure. Meanwhile, at Whitmore Associates, I thrived. My new boss actually acknowledged my contributions. He promoted me to Director of Client Services within a year. I now have a team of 12 people, and I make sure every single one of them gets credit for their work. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I had just accepted my fate at Meridian, if I had smiled and helped Brittany and swallowed my pride, but I know in my heart that I made the right